This is a TV show called FLASHPOINT. It's on the Victory Network, owned and operated by Kenneth Copeland. On the left, we have Gene Bailey. He's a pastor, a televangelist, and a complete nutcase, naturally. On the right, we have I think, the next prime minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu. He was also the prime minister previously, but they kicked him out and replaced him temporarily. I guess he's back in. He's a far-right extremist, a terrible person, wants a Jewish ethno-state, and of course is deeply, deeply loved by the MAGA crowd, which is exactly what this TV show is all about. This is the MAGA crowd that we're listening to. So the MAGA people bring Bibi Netanyahu on, the leader of Israel, or the next leader of Israel in previous, to talk about how much they love Israel. Naturally, they don't actually love Israel because they love Israel. They love Israel because they need it to exist as a country before the end comes. They fully expect all of the Jews in Israel to die a horrible, bloody death eventually, and will be singing praises when that happens. They don't give a shit about the people in Israel. They give a shit that it needs to exist to fulfill a piece of prophecy. So, anyway, let's listen to what these guys have to say about Bibi Netanyahu and to Bibi Netanyahu. And while we listen, we're going to play some Breath of the Wild.
Term, you stood almost alone on the world stage, pointing out the dangers that Iran poses to Israel and the West. And
what? He thinks that Israel is, or Netanyahu at least, is almost alone on the world stage talking about how dangerous Iran is? What kind of a fantasy land does this guy live in? Iran is terrible in every way, and everybody knows that.
In fact, you discuss that in your book. How have things changed in 2022?
Well, they've changed dramatically because I think that the tragic events in Iran, the subjugation of the Iranian people, the terrible violence inflicted on Iranian women, their incredible courage going to the streets of Tehran and the other cities of Iran, that has basically torn off the mask of this regime that was pretending to be something it wasn't.
Absolutely agreed on that point. I am super, super pro revolution in Iran right now. Or Iran. It's pronounced Iran. I'm sorry. I really hope that they succeed in getting something done. The Iranian government intends to do full-blown, mass executions for the protests that are happening. And it's deeply disturbing stuff, dude.
Through various diplomatic maneuvers and charm offensives and so on. Now the whole world can see what this horrible regime is about. And people now ask themselves, do we want these cruel ayatollahs and mullahs to have nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them to every city in the world?
Nobody wants that. Absolutely nobody. But when you're listening to this, bear in mind that a lot of what he's saying right now is veiled language. It's kind of covered up. So Israel, when it was created as a country back in 1947, I think, it was plopped right in the middle of an already existing civilization, the Palestinians. And Israel's existence as a country was backed up by every major country at the time, for the most part, like the West anyways. Backed up and protected. They drew borders where the Palestinians could live and where the Israelis could live. And what did the Israeli government do? They came in and created settlements and camps and pushed the boundaries and borders and pigeonholed the Palestinians out of where the originally agreed upon borders were supposed to be. Oppressed them terribly, mistreated them terribly, deeply, deeply ugly stuff. And you know what people do when they're deeply oppressed and treated terribly? They turn to the only thing that they have left to them, which is domestic terrorism, which is not okay. It's not okay. Domestic terrorist organizations are not okay and should not exist. But there is a historical basis for Hamas's existence, which is the organization that's been fighting for Palestinian freedom in Palestine and Israel this whole time. There is heavy, heavy conflict between the Israeli culture and the Palestinian culture in the area, and Israel keeps redrawing borders and capturing land that they're not really entitled to, according to most of the world. So every time Netanyahu talks about Muslims or, Arabs or whatever else, it's usually veiled language to refer to the Palestinians. Right now he's referring to the Iranians, which is something I can agree with his points about the Iranians, but the guy is deeply racist and hateful and bigoted against Arabs in general because of the conflicts with the Palestinians. So that's the little bit of context that you might need to understand what they're talking about here. Let's keep listening.
And the answer is categorically no. I think that's changed, and I'm glad about that. But the task of blocking them from getting these weapons of mass death that could terrorize the world.
Again, nobody wants Iran to have nuclear weapons. Nobody wants that. Nobody. But when he's talking about Arabs and nuclear weapons and stuff, it's really a fear-mongering tactic to try to get you freaked out about Palestinians. It is an apartheid state right now, unfortunately. It's ugly.
Still remains before us. So I think, called it my first task.
Right. You're going to be tasked with forming a new government. Are you confident now, with all that's happened, that you can bring all these diverse parties together?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm confident we can do that.
Israel's political system differs heavily from the United States in the sense that they have like 90 or 100 political parties, like a lot. It's just a random assortment of parties that believe in different things. And to get anything at all done, they have to form coalitions with each other. They only succeeded in getting Bibi Netanyahu out of office the first time because political parties who have absolutely nothing in common came together to try to evict him and chose a leader. It was actually mind-blowingly surprising that they succeeded in getting him out in the first place, but I guess their agreements didn't last because here he is again. So the question is he going to be able to unify the government? Will he be able to get like these political parties to work with each other to blah, blah, blah. And he seems pretty confident. I'm not so confident. They are all very, very different from each other.
I've had a lot of practice. Remember, this is
you have.
Sixth government that I'm forming, yes.
Yes, absolutely. And you ran an amazing campaign. How did your time out of office help with where you are now?
Well, first of all, it gave me something very valuable for which I'll be forever grateful. It gave me...
He speaks flawless English. I'm honestly surprised. I believe that the official language in Israel is Hebrew, which was a dead language until very recently. It wasn't used in any real regular situations up until Israel was formed out as a country. And then I think Hebrew became its official language. Before that, Jews generally spoke Yiddish. So anyways, yeah, kind of interesting.
A year in which I could write this book that we're discussing right now. There's no way that I could write that book while I'm in office. So I'm grateful for that. It also gave me time to, as you write the book, think about your life. You think about the lessons that you've gleaned from the various experiences, and you think about what you want to do with the rest of it. And I've had time to do all of that, and I put most of it in my book.
Yes, and it is an indeed great, wonderful book, Benjamin Netanyahu, Bibi, My Story. I have a question for you, Prime Minister. What is the one thing that you want Americans to know about Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, Americans specifically, that you have no better ally than Israel, and that through...
Well, it's useful to have Israel as an ally. Absolutely, I agree. But the problem is that Israel is mistreating people in their area terribly and setting up an apartheid state. So I don't care if they're an ally or not. They should be called out for their bad behavior.
Thick and thin and through changing administrations, Israel, I believe, is the best ally of the United States, just as I believe that the United States is the best ally of Israel. That's the most important thing. And I, as the Prime Minister of Israel, deeply believe it, even though I've had my share of disagreements with American presidents. That fundamental understanding is ironclad.
He knows that he can take advantage of this weak-minded idea that Israel is necessary before the end times come. He knows he can take advantage of religious extremism from Christians in America. And he is. Of course, he's taking advantage of that. And by the by, if you want to worry about election tampering from foreign governments, look no further than Israel. Yes, Russia absolutely tampered with the election system in 2016 and honestly, probably every election since. Israel is not innocent in this whole situation. Israel has taken part in their fair share of tampering through lobbying and bribes and the whole 9 yards, you know.
Ironclad.
Ironclad. And I believe the most of America watching tonight agrees with you with their support for Israel.
We should support Israel 100%. I agree. I'm an atheist. I have no religious whatever. Yeah, we should support them. Sure. They're a democracy. We should support democracies. You know who else we should support? Palestinians who are being mistreated terribly. That's simply wrong. And there's no excuse for turning away and not facing that fact that they are terribly mistreating Palestinians. No excuse for it. We should support Israel. We should also support Palestinians.
On election night, you were emotional when you were talking about the sacrifices that your family has made. How do you reconcile those sacrifices against the political assault that you've experienced over the last 30 years?
Well, I think it's a question of something that animates the book, and that is you live a life of purpose, at least I have. My purpose was to do everything I could to assure the security, prosperity, and permanence of the one and only Jewish state.
Oh, yeah, and stealing land from Palestinians that they had no right to. Forgot that little caveat there.
That was the purpose that I've been devoting my life to and will devote my next term in office to as well. When you live a life of purpose beyond yourself, it gives you tremendous resilience and force to overcome very difficult conditions. Israeli politics is not gentle. All politics is cruel. Sometimes Israeli politics is crueler than most. So unless you share this vision with your family and with yourself, then I would say there's no point in political life, because power by itself is useless and boring and uninteresting, and not worthy.
That's an interesting take. I think Donald Trump would disagree with you, but okay.
If you live a life of purpose, then you can overcome even dreadful odds.
Excellent. The world calls it the West Bank. Bible believers call it Judea and Samaria, because almost every important event in Scripture happened there. The area has been racked by violence lately. How do you restore safety and security for both Jews and Arabs?
Oh, suddenly this guy gives a shit about Arabs, huh? How about that?
Well, you don't restore it by being weak and vacillating. It doesn't help.
You don't restore it by being a strongman dictator and forcing people to do this or that, or getting tough on crime or whatever else. There are actual answers that we can look to psychologists to find, and strategists and stuff. You don't have to terribly mistreat everybody around you. You don't have to increase the police presence or the military presence in the area. You don't have to increase apartheid. You don't have to do any of that shit. But, you know, Netanyahu naturally sees that as the answer to most problems, so.
You have to take an iron fist against terrorism, wherever it comes from.
I agree. Iron fist against terrorism. That does not mean an iron fist against innocent people who didn't do shit to anybody, which is exactly what's happening in some parts of Israel.
And Judea and Samaria is no exception, on the contrary. And believe me, both Jews and Arabs, Israelis and Palestinians, welcome the return of calm. And I've had the good fortune, and I don't think it's accidental, of the 10 last years that I was in office, ending 2 years ago, were actually the most quiet and safest decade in Israel's history. And it wasn't because I was soft and yielding, it was because I was not yielding, unyielding, and uncompromising.
You don't have to use an iron fist to accomplish goals. This is the traditional Republican solution to every problem. Use an iron fist. This doesn't solve problems. It makes people's lives miserable. It's like the war on drugs. You think that banning all drugs and chasing people down and putting them in prison has decreased drug use? You're a fool if you believe that. That has not solved the problem. Using an iron fist and jailing everybody around you does not solve the problem. It creates power vacuums.
Acting strongly against the terrorists that torment us, and by the way, Palestinians too. So I think in many ways that's what's required, and that's what I intend to do.
Excellent. You know, the recent U.S. elections here continue to highlight how deeply divided America has become. How does that affect the international goals that you hope to achieve going?
Oh, this is going to be interesting. What is Bibi Netanyahu's? I thought his name was Benjamin for some reason. What is Bibi Netanyahu's take on the midterms and stuff?
Forward.
Well, I have enough of our own politics. I won't go into yours, but I would say that in Israel, at least, across the political spectrum, people are united in their appreciation for America and the importance that America plays.
Wow, interesting diplomatic answer. Not one I expected. He says, we're too busy worrying about our own stuff to give you an opinion on yours. That's actually probably a really intelligent thing for him to say, because taking a side one way or another could absolutely cause serious rifts. I mean, he's already on FLASHPOINT, so he's already on like an extremist network or whatever. So,
in Israel's national interest, it's what I call the indispensable ally. It's ultimately the protector of freedom. So I think through change,
stroke him a little harder, just a little harder. He's almost there.
Changing administrations here and in America, the alliance has been unshakable. And most Americans recognize that. Most Americans support Israel. A few on the radical fringe don't, but most Americans across the very broad political spectrum view Israel for what it is, this great ally of the United States.
I don't think they're a great ally of the U.S. I think they take advantage of the U.S. pretty often to get what they want. I think it's useful to have an ally in the Middle East, and it's also a good thing to encourage liberal democracies. And that is, by and large, what Israel aspires to be, at the very least, a liberal democracy. Unfortunately, they're also an apartheid state, and something needs to be done about that. That's disgusting.
A fortress of freedom in the heart of the Middle East, which in a very large radius is not composed of democracies like Israel is. And so people understand that this is a plucky, courageous island of Western civilization. And the fortunate thing is that we now find allies within the Arab world who, while not being Democrats with a small d, they nonetheless would like to seize progress and not go back to medieval fundamentalism of the radical Islamists. So we forge new alliances based on that common interest.
Absolutely. Love it. Yes. Right now, I feel like the Muslim world has not gone through a reformation recently the way that Christianity has. And that is to say, there are very few secular Muslims out there in Middle Eastern countries, but there are secular Christians in the West. I feel like Muslims need to go through a similar reformation as Christianity did. But ultimately, the two people chatting right here, right now, represent the worst of Christian and Jewish beliefs. They are the radical fundamentalists of the Christian and Jewish world. So they're sitting here like bashing Muslims like they're, all terrorists, they're all fundamentalist extremists, blah, 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 forgetting the fact that they are the exact mirror image of what they're criticizing right now for their own religion. Seriously, no self-awareness in either of these two people, just complete blindness.
Which has been up to now supported by America and should be supported by America continuously. As far as the democracies have their polarization, we in Israel have had a wrenching few years.
Right.
I think once you establish a government, you have to reach out across the aisle. In our case, aisles, because of
Right.
politics, more than two parties. But nevertheless, the nature of democracy is that you have you resolve conflict non-violently. You resolve it through argument, sometimes fierce argument and debate, but you settle it not with bullets, but in the ballot box.
Absolutely.
But arguments per se, people sort of lament all the time that democracies are, they are argumentative, that they're polarized. Yeah, they are. That's what it is. That's what it's about. If you don't have polarization, then you have a totalitarian state, which is what Iran is trying.
Not necessarily. You can have two parties that disagree on things but aren't polarized, like completely separate from each other and refuse to work with each other or whatever. That's different. That's a totally different thing. And totalitarian is not the right word to use there. What he meant was authoritarian, probably. Totalitarian is a little bit different. That's neither here nor there. Problem is that Bibi here is what he's denouncing is violence, when that is exactly what he's using to get his way through the IDF. That's what it's called, right? The IDF, which is the Israeli police force, basically, that is famous for terribly mistreating Palestinians for no goddamn fucking reason. But anyway, yeah, let's keep listening here.
Trying to be.
Right.
And the fact is that you see that the protest emerges from the concrete right up. It just bursts through the concrete. And it's fascinating to watch and something that I greatly respect and admire.
Yeah, what Bibi said in that was actually fantastic. I agree with a lot of that. Unfortunately, he's not living those values that he just espoused. That was an incredibly diplomatic speech that he just gave, and I was all in for all of it. But he lied through basically all of it. He is actually a far-right extremist who pushes fundamentalism and apartheid on the state that he runs, and it's honestly sad.
All right, make sure you watch Thursday for the last part of that interview where I dug into with him. We got a little more personal in the second part. You'll hear stories about an 800-pound gorilla and family. What does that mean to him? You make sure you join us this coming Thursday night as we continue our interview with Benjamin Netanyahu, Bibi, my story. What a great interview. Lance, I really enjoyed.
The word you're looking for is hypocrisy. Right, exactly.
There's several statements in there that really stuck out to me. Number one, there is a great vacuum on the world stage for a strong leader. And so when you're listening to Bibi, you're getting the impression this guy is not going to back down. He hasn't gotten softer as the years have gone by. He's gotten stronger. He had a little break there. So
God, they just love strongman authoritarian dictatorship type of people, don't they? It just blows me away that they're like obsessive over this garbage. I don't know why.
Now he's ready to come back, and I love that. He said you have to live a life of purpose beyond yourself. And that's really what I think we have a real issue, not just in America, but around the world, people living for themselves instead of living for a bigger purpose. And of course, we know what our purpose is. Lance, your thoughts?
My purpose, personally, is your mom.
Thoughts on Benjamin Netanyahu?
Yeah, great. Congratulations on landing that great interview there, Gene. Another great interview by Gene. So anyway, here's my thinking. Where else in the world do Americans know the name of a foreign prime minister? I mean,
well, it was Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, and I'm not sure who it is now. Didn't they just bring somebody else new in? Let's see. They have New Zealand is oh my God, what's I shouldn't have mentioned New Zealand. I suddenly forgot her name. She is fantastic. Love her to death. She did such a great job in during the COVID times. Oh my God, she's great. I believe New Zealand's first female prime minister. There's also Justin Trudeau. Hell, I mean, there's Xi Jinping, although he's not really a prime minister exactly, is he? There's Vladimir Putin. I mean, I know a billion prime ministers and presidents and leaders of countries. I'm not sure what Lance Wallnau is trying to get at here. And honestly, Bibi isn't even the prime minister of Israel anymore, is he? Or yet. I think that he's almost the prime minister. I think it's like inevitable that they've decided that he's probably going to be pretty soon. I'm just trying to make a point here that this guy believes that Israel is somebody really, really special, when in reality, you know, he's really not. He's just like a far-right extremist, hypocritical, you know, monster in some ways who perpetuates apartheid in his own state and wants a Jewish ethno-state. Deeply wrong.
This tells you about the unique relationship between the United States and Israel. If I was to say, who's the prime minister of Japan? Who's the prime
Shinzo Abe was. He died, of course, recently. I'm not sure who replaced him. I don't remember.
minister of England? Who's the prime minister?
England? Well, it was Liz Truss. Again, she just got replaced. Didn't she step down? Oh, no. You know who it is? It's an Indian guy who's a billionaire. Oh, God. I forget his name now.
Minister of France, blah, 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 we wouldn't know. But we all know.
Who's the prime minister of France? That would be Macron at the moment, right? And again, Bibi is not the prime minister of Israel yet. By the time you see this, he might be, I believe. But he's not quite there yet. He was previously, and he will be again likely, but not quite yet.
Netanyahu. Why? Because he's a Trumpian-like figure. The General Wellington once said that
He's a Trumpian-like figure. That should be all you need to know about Bibi to not really like the fact that he's the prime minister, honestly. Although he's not really a Trumpian-like figure. He is way more measured than Donald Trump, like way more, obviously. That interview he just gave was absolutely flawless. It was perfect. Of course, he didn't mean a word of it, and he doesn't live up to any of it, but it was a very measured, chill interview that he gave.
Napoleon's presence in the field was the equivalent psychologically to 10,000 soldiers. Well, that's Netanyahu. His presence as prime minister of Israel is equal to another million soldiers on the front lines dealing with Iran or with Syria or with any terrorist activity, because they know the decade he was there, they had calm because he had an iron fist policy. He, as your interviews will show, he lost family members to terrorism. He's paid a personal family price. He knows his enemy. By the way, I might say that Donald Trump occupies that same space, not necessarily in domestic politics, because he's kind of seen as a terrorist to the Democrats.
Oh, he most definitely is. Yeah, absolutely. He is a stochastic terrorist, without a doubt. He has caused endless suffering and pain in people's lives, without a doubt. He's most definitely a stochastic terrorist, Trump is.
And the establishment. But globally, the presence of Donald Trump in foreign diplomacy, let there be no doubt, it's the equivalent of like Napoleon on the field.
No, it is not. People made fun of Trump and America when he was president. How do you walk away from that whole experience of Trump being the president, believing that he was respected in the world? Seriously, this blows me away.
Russia respects Trump. China.
No, they don't. Russia knows that he's a gullible sucker that can be taken advantage of. Same with China.
Respects Trump. North Korea respects Trump. The Middle East respects Trump. That's why he should be getting an award, prize for his Abraham Accords.
No to all of that. You know what? Okay. There's this meme passing around far-right circles that Donald Trump brought peace to the Middle East. Do you want to know what actually happened? A lot of Middle Eastern countries were boycotting Israel, basically, because of their treatment of the Palestinians. Rightfully so. And you know what Donald Trump did? He signed accords that basically bribed Middle Eastern countries to start doing trade deals with Israel out in the open rather than through like a black market or underground. These trade deals were already taking place by and large. They just weren't taking place publicly. And they were being publicly denounced for their treatment of the Palestinians by Saudi Arabia and, you know, all of these other Middle Eastern countries. So Donald Trump took your tax money and bribed Saudi Arabia and the other Middle Eastern countries to work with Israel openly. through trade deals. That's actually what Donald Trump did to claim that he accomplished peace in the Middle East. That is not peace in the Middle East. That is bribing somebody to look the other way on disgusting human rights abuses. That very different things. Can't even really confuse the two in my mind, but okay.
But unfortunately, we don't always properly evaluate our leaders in our history. But that's my thoughts on Netanyahu, Gene.
Yeah, thank you. Again, really impressive. I went off my script in the second part. I started to go off script there, and you can see I love it when he said, "What the answer to what do you think Americans need to know about Netanyahu? That Israel is America's greatest ally." And I think we would all agree with that. Absolutely.
Not really. The fact that we're allied with Israel kind of causes like no end of grief for us, because there are a lot of countries out there that denounce what Israel has been saying and doing and their treatment of the Palestinians. And the fact that we are not denouncing that treatment has actually worked against us. A lot of these countries are kind of upset with us because we're blindly supporting Israel despite the fact that they're kind of acting like complete scumbags. But okay.
Absolutely greatest ally. All right, before we go, a lot of stuff in the news about cryptocurrency, FTX crash. If you're wondering, what is that all about? I got 99 seconds to show you exactly what it is.
99 seconds, but a bitch ain't one, right? I'm actually unfamiliar with the FTX thing. I heard about FTX crypto crash and that somebody was like doing something questionable and should probably be in jail for it, but I haven't really read the article to know exactly what's going on, so it'll be hard to fact check. Hopefully somebody in the comments be able to help me fact check this.
Watch.
This is Sam Bankman-Fried. People call him SBF. He's the founder of FTX. He also controlled a crypto hedge fund called Alameda Research, but that's all gone now. He wants you to think he's this sweet guy. He even brought in a famous YouTuber who called him the most generous man in the world. Yep.
Yeah, from my understanding, this is accurate and also largely fabricated. The guy did scam a bunch of people, I think.
That happened. Truth is, Sam Bankman-Fried is a liar and a crook. His personal crypto, FTX token, was basically a Ponzi scheme hidden below layers of Moonbro jargon. He even went on Bloomberg's podcast and bragged about it. Yep, that happened. He used his Ponzi token as collateral to borrow billions of real dollars that he couldn't pay back. He then used those real dollars to build an empire out of dying companies like Voyager and BlockFi. This led Jim...
What he's describing right now is most definitely a Ponzi scheme. That's accurate, but I'm not sure if this accurately represents what actually happened or not. Is anybody... Let's keep listening to this. Somebody can give me an idea at the end in like the Twitch chat or the YouTube chat. Just at me there with a highlighted message, or just at Telltale Unfiltered on YouTube, and I'll kind of look through and see if you guys think that's accurate.
Jim Cramer to call him the new JP Morgan. That's weird. It's not like Jim Cramer to promote a billionaire con artist. SBF sold people cryptos like Bitcoin, or so they thought. What they really bought from SBF was an IOU. But as long as everyone didn't cash in their IOU at the same time, the scheme worked. Until it didn't.
That's how a Ponzi scheme works. Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like this is actually a true blue Ponzi scheme, the way they're describing it.
Who hates SBF came along and engineered a bank run with some passive-aggressive tweets. It worked. SBF didn't have enough money to repay everyone at once, and now his customers have lost everything. He'll be happy to know that this is exactly how every bank in the world operates.
No, that is inaccurate. That's not how it works, actually. Banks have to hold a certain amount of capital on hand. Okay, so you deposit $100 into a bank account, right? Now, according to the law, banks are legally free to take all but I think 30% of that amount and reinvest it in the stock market or loan it to people or whatever other thing. That is controversial, but that's just kind of how banks work, and I'm really okay with that. So they have to have like 30% liquid on hand or something like that. I forget exactly what the number is. That's very different from an actual full-blown Ponzi scheme. Plus, banks are FDIC insured, which means there is a company out there that banks pay that if the bank goes under and they don't have your money, you can retrieve the money from the insurance company, the FDIC insurance company. You're not paying any extra for them to have that FDIC insurance. You're not paying for that insurance. No, it's the bank that pays for that insurance. to make sure that if they go under, you get paid anyways. That's how this differs from everything else. Now, there are some predatory practices banks engage in that should be, scrutinized heavily. It's not a Ponzi scheme at all.
So where did all the money go? He misappropriated $4 billion trying to save his failing hedge fund. Whoops, that's a felony. He spent $21 million on Super Bowl commercials, $5 million for the big guy, $40 million in campaign donations. I wonder what he wanted in return.
Again, they've already completely twisted things around to be what they are not, so be very skeptical of what he says from here on.
And everyone who's pointing at this story and saying,
this is exactly why we need to regulate crypto.
Remember that SBF stole billions. That's already a crime. And he spent a lot of it on bribing politicians. Also a crime, in order to create a crypto monopoly for himself. Government regulations don't protect the customers. They protect the crooks. That's exactly what SBF was trying to do.
All right, you understand now what it was? All right, that was a very quick rundown of what really happened.
If that is actually what happened, that was definitely a Ponzi scheme. That's not super common to actually come across Ponzi schemes. As an accountant, he's a glorified Ponzi scheme and is pretty accurate in regards to what they're saying against FTX founder. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for that information. They are mostly accurate about the crypto sphere. I would suggest watching CoffeeZilla or Spencer Cornella to get more detailed explanation. I've heard that CoffeeZilla is pretty good. I haven't actually ever seen any of that. But anyways, yeah, this is very different from a bank. It doesn't work the same as like a bank at all. But they're gonna propagandize as usual. But there you go. All right, let's see what Flashpoint has to say about it. Why are they even addressing this? This is very much like completely out of the boomer sphere, right? Which is exactly who's watching this show.
FTX. There was one statement in there that if you didn't miss it, he gave $5 million to the big guy, $40 million.
Okay, I don't know if that's even true. Gave $5 million to Biden. I don't know how true that is. Be a little bit skeptical about it. Look it up yourself to be sure.
To other Democratic candidates. Jesse, you and I were talking before we went on the air about this. This is selling air. It's the Ponzi scheme that keeps repeating itself time and time again. But this time, a lot of people got sucked in. A lot of people are upset. And it seems to me those that receive those campaign donations should send them back. Wouldn't that be the right thing to do?
I definitely agree 100%.
I'm not sure why he's so quiet. It's illegal to give campaign donations over, I don't know what it is, $5,300 or $9,600 or something like that to a candidate. You can donate that money to a super PAC, but those super PACs legally have nothing to do with the candidate themselves. They just support the candidate. So the super PAC would be responsible for giving the money back if they wanted to or if they had it or whatever. Super PACs are kind of the way of getting around a lot of regulations, and they're wrong, and I'm not really convinced they should even exist in the first place. We desperately need campaign finance reform. But Biden did not receive $5 million from these people. He may have used $5 million to promote him in some way, shape, or form, but Biden is not sitting on a stack of cash from this guy. It's not how it works at all. But, the nuance goes right out the window with them.
They ought to send it back. It's a lot of people. It's amazing to me. People have a good story. What I wanted just to talk about Netanyahu for just a minute. The reason why he was a man of purpose, why he did what he did, he reminded me of Churchill. It is that purpose affords you anchorage in the times of battle. See, and he was a man of purpose. That's why he could handle it. Well, this guy here at the Bitcoin situation, he wasn't a person of purpose. He was just thinking about himself. And he had paid.
Well, I don't know that he was thinking about himself. I think he was planning on building something out that would allow him to succeed eventually. But he didn't succeed. He failed miserably just because of the way it all played out. I think he expected to be able to pay those IOUs back eventually. That's my guess. I mean, I don't know the situation exactly, but that's what it seemed like to me. And things just didn't work out the way he expected. They never do. Ponzi schemes are always a bad idea, but anyway.
Payoffs and things, and eventually what goes around will come around because someone's going to call your card, going to call that money in. And
yeah, absolutely. Someone's going to call that money in. That is why banks are legally required to hold on to a certain amount of liquid assets. They can't loan out every penny. They can't invest every penny of it. They have to hold on to some of it for that exact reason.
It's amazing to me if the Democrats or the people that receive that money, if they would, that would be an honorable thing if they would give that money back. But they're not going to do that because they got what they want. They don't.
Okay, they probably never even received it. Like, they don't understand how campaign finance works. Well, they probably do understand exactly how campaign finance works. They just want to twist it around and make Biden out to be like this terrible bad guy who takes advantage of everybody around him. And in the process, completely ignoring the campaign finance process and the laws around it and all of that other garbage.
I don't care if this kid go to prison or not. And I heard today on Fox Business News that he said that he never wanted to be rich. He just wanted to give to charity. Well, I mean, that's silliness, you see. They were doing everything they can. So you got to be real careful when you're dealing on the street and Wall Street and things of that nature, because everyone that's buying stock thinks it's going up. Everyone that is selling it thinks it's going down. It's the same thing with Bitcoin.
Absolutely agreed. Yes, speculative trading or trying to time the market is a bad idea. You should never, ever, ever do it. If you're going to invest in absolutely anything at all, you should assume that it's going to be higher in a year than it is right now, and you're going to hold on and you're going to hold on to it for dear life and never sell it. Just keep buying $100 a month for the next year, for the next 5 years, 10, 15, 20 years. Just keep buying, keep buying, keep buying. Doesn't matter what the market's doing. Doesn't matter if it's going up or down or any other thing. Doesn't matter. Assume it'll be higher than it is today a year from now. And just keep purchasing little by little. That's how you're supposed to invest. And if you do it that way, you almost always succeed in generating money. 6% is a decent return on investment, ROI. 12% sometimes. Hell, if you're really lucky, 15 to 20%. Just kind of depends. But trying to time the market is gambling. It's really no different than gambling, and you honestly should not do it.
Bitcoin or anything else that you do out there. I would just tell people, why don't you pray about your investments, because the Holy Spirit knows what to do, when to do it, yes, where to do it, and how to do it. And you know,
wow, I didn't realize that the Holy Spirit was an investment banker or counselor. That's really interesting to me. Okay.
And I don't mean this to sound bragging, but I would be preaching 47 years in January, and I've never had a financial deficit. But you know what? You know why?
Because you sucker gullible fools out of their money. That's why. Because you teach prosperity gospel. That's why. Because you're good with money, you're a millionaire, right? Is that your explanation? I can tell you this. I worked for Burger King for 6 years. There's no amount of saving that would have turned me into a millionaire as a Burger King employee. No amount of saving. But he has honestly no idea. He has no clue what it's like to be broke as shit. Has no idea.
Because when I go before God in my personal business, as well as in my and when I'm preaching, I say, God, what will Thou have me to do? How do you want me to handle it? Should I buy this? Should I not? I involve God in everything I do, spiritually, physically, financially. And I don't mean it's prideful. I'm a very blessed man, and I thank God for it, because I give Him His due, because He knows the past.
I am blessed and filthy fucking rich because God loves me more. That's what he's saying right now. That is just disgusting, dude.
He knows the present and He knows the future. So God is not saying this is not going. He knows what's going to work, what's not going to work. And this young man should have figured that out. And he's in trouble right now. And that same thing happened on Wall Street about that other guy. I mean, he had a big Ponzi scheme and people lost money like crazy.
I'm not sure who he's talking about. Enron, maybe? I think that was kind of a similar situation, right?
If it's too good to be true, it is. See,
it is.
Hey, that's actually, he's right. That's good advice. Absolutely. Don't try to time the market. Purchase on a regular interval, regular schedule, and diversify. Don't invest in Bitcoin. Invest a little bit in Bitcoin, a little bit in Ethereum, a little bit in this, a little bit in that. Maybe 7 to 10% of your portfolio should be crypto, and then the rest should be index stocks. And you buy just a little bit more every month, like $100 a month. Just keep putting it in. Doesn't matter if the market's up, doesn't matter if the market's down. That's the best investment advice anybody could ever give you.
But if you ask God, He'll tell you what's true.
There you go. Great advice, ladies and gentlemen. Great advice. All right.
Not really. God will not tell you what to do, quote unquote. I'll tell you what to do. Buy $100 a month of a little bit of everything. That simple. God is not going to tell you that. This dude is just full of it.
There's this. I want to keep with the FTX story. FTX is really a crypto laundromat for the Ukrainian government.
Okay, I have no idea what they're talking about, but this is honestly sad that they constantly attack Ukraine for no fucking reason. Like, come on, guys. Ukraine is the underdog. They're fighting Russia, but that's why these people oppose them, because Russia is opposed to Ukraine, and these people are ultimately shills for Russia. Always have been.
Watch.
The last time we talked, we were talking about philanthropy, and I know you set up, working with the Ukrainian government, ways to use crypto to raise money for the government. I just wanted to ask you quickly, because obviously they've also changed the rules, concerns about sort of spillover effects and substitution away from their currency.
Yep.
How much money did you raise, and what do you think about this as, you know, a tool for the governments, but also the risks associated with it too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that gets to the point that this can be a great thing for the world. I think it can also be a really messy thing. But I think that at its core, you know, we've seen millions of dollars go through, you know, the systems we've given. I think something close to $1 million ourselves as well, to support, you know, humanitarian aid and growth in Ukraine. And you know, I think when you think about what it
Supporting Ukraine is generally viewed as like a virtuous thing right now, understandably, because Ukraine is suffering terribly. They didn't do shit to anybody. And Ukraine is being mistreated terribly and trying to fight for their lives right now. So naturally, people are going to try to help Ukraine. That's generally viewed as a good thing. But not by these people, not by the FLASHPOINT people. The FLASHPOINT people love Russia. They love strongman dictators. And they know that Donald Trump loves Putin, so they love Putin too. That's what it's all about, baby. So they're going to try to do everything they can to demonize Ukraine for no fucking reason. Just because they're looking for an opportunity to hurt people. That's it. So they're applying this situation to Ukraine, and that is exactly the type of thing that Russia would want.
It would take to get, you know, to get funds both to the government there, where we do have a relationship with the Ukrainian government for raising capital for them using cryptocurrencies that runs through FTX. You know, whether it's getting money to the government or whether it's getting money to individuals there in need. You know, there are literally tanks outside of the banks, and this gets to, I think, one of the, you know, places where it can be really important to have a fully digital banking system, and you know, fully.
Yeah, that would actually be fantastic to have a fully digital banking system. I would love that. Or it would be very useful to have, which is kind of what Bitcoin is moving toward a little bit, or cryptocurrencies in general. But anyways, yeah, that's neither here nor there. These people, I mean, FLASHPOINT is just doing everything they can to demonize Ukraine because they love Russia. It's just disgusting.
Fully digital, you know, way of handling payments. And I think that's, you know, an international one. That's the core of what we've been, you know, helping to support in Ukraine.
You know what? I don't understand half of what he was saying, Lance.
But he's going to criticize it anyways, right?
Yet I'm sitting here looking at this guy, and this video was from a while back, and yet somehow he gets millions, quadruple millions of dollars to be able to give away. It just shows you, man, it's a crazy world out there. Lance, what do you think?
They honestly have no idea what happened or how this works or whatever.
FTX going to Ukraine.
All right.
Wait, they didn't say FTX going to Ukraine, did they? I thought they said cryptocurrency going to Ukraine to help Ukrainians. That is completely different.
Two things. First of all, you're the journalist that caught what the guy didn't say, and that really brilliant.
Okay, none of these people are journalists. They're political commentators, just like me. I'm not a journalist. I'm a political commentator. David Pakman is not a journalist. He's a political commentator. That fundamental misunderstanding and that specific confusion that he just introduced into this whole thing, he knows the difference between a journalist and a political commentator. But intertwining the two, confusing the two, benefits them. It works to their benefit. It works to their benefit, just like when they confuse political commentator with journalist regarding Tucker Carlson. They he is perfectly free to espouse any nonsense that he wants to espouse, and people continue to call him a journalist, despite the fact that it's opinion. It's like these people have no idea what the difference is between opinion and fact. It just blows me away.
In 30-second summary of the crime spree of this guy, it's not $40 million given to politicians. That's what the TikTok said. It's $40 million given to Democrats, because the Democrats, I think, might have been the ones that benefited from the money going into the Ukraine. We don't know yet.
Then why are you espousing it if you don't know? You understand what he's claiming here, right? He's saying the U.S. government has sent like billions of dollars to Ukraine, and then Democrats are laundering that money back into their own pockets. And what did he say immediately after? We don't know that yet, but... Well, if you don't know it, why are you saying it? This is all propaganda all the way down. You know where this claim originated? There's this conspiracy theory website that is... I don't know which specific one said it, so I'm not going to make any claims about it. I think it was Zero Hedge. If that's true, it is a known Russian disinformation node, but don't quote me on that. So, as I was saying, some conspiracy theory website out there, whichever one it was, I forget now, made claims about Democrats funneling money that went to Ukraine back into their own pockets. No evidence to back it up. It was a complete conspiracy theory to the core. And look at that. These people are out here repeating it like it's true anyways, despite the fact that there was zero evidence for it. How about that? Surprised?
Because after all, when Trump mentioned about checking out the Ukraine, he almost got impeached when he brought up the fact that politicians are dipping into the money and the billions, 80 billion.
No, he got impeached for withholding aid to Ukraine until they opened an investigation into his political opponent, which they refused to do. Very different situations, but just got to tweak it that little bit. Just tweak it a little bit until it represents exactly what you want it to. This is the nature of propaganda.
That went to Ukraine, the fourth most corrupt country in the world. Where do you think that money's going, Gene? But I don't want to go there. What I want to say is this young man did tip his hand. He said, I think we need to go fully digital, fully digital. Fully digital is the Antichrist next step.
Oh, my God. They've been saying, when I say they, I'm talking like Christian nationalists, have been talking about this specific conspiracy theory for since I was a teenager, even longer than that, honestly. The claim that they're going to inject a chip into, under your skin, and you're going to need to use that chip to make payments and stuff. And this chip is going to store your credit card information and all that garbage, and that's going to be the mark of the beast. Oh, my God. When are these people going to get over themselves?
The spirit of Antichrist wants to take away your cash. It's bad enough. I like what Jesse said one day. I like to have a coin I can put in my teeth and bite into it. I can bite into gold. I can't bite into a Bitcoin.
Why would you want to bite into a coin? That's disgusting. Do you know how fucking dirty coins are? Really, really dirty. You should not be biting any coins. Seriously.
I never forget him telling me that. Well, here's the reality. You can't bite into a digit either. So you really do want to be careful about listening to these wonder boys talking about the crypto world and the Bitcoin future and the digital currency. I think we want to kind of tap the brakes on all that stuff and work with hard assets and stuff that you can measure, including energy. That's my theory.
Excellent. And that
hard assets you can measure, including energy, i.e., no wind power, because you can't measure wind power, but you can measure an amount of oil. Just ridiculous, dude.
That was a very good impression, by the way. All right, John Graves, I'm going to give you 45 seconds to wrap this thing up and tie a bow on it.
I think that I like what Jesse said at the beginning of the show and towards the end there. We got to be street smart. We literally need to have some common sense smart as we try to do these things. And you and I talked about this before the show. If you're not in Georgia and you know somebody in Georgia, text GA to 80550. Get this. Put it in churches, put it in people. Do not give up. Do not grow weary in well-doing. If you do not quit, you will reap. And I know things don't always go the way we want them to go, but we continue with our integrity and our purpose.
Okay, these people have absolutely no integrity, but all right.
Amen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back after station identification. I always wanted to say that. And we'll go to cover the first half hour of President Trump's announcement, whatever that may be. So don't go
Whatever that may be, as if they didn't know already that he was announcing for president.
away. We'll be right back. Make sure you join us next Thursday for the rest of Netanyahu and so much more. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, so wow, that was the end of that one. I thought they were going to cover Trump's announcement speech. Weird. I guess not. Yeah, we don't have an announcement speech. We may end up watching this one later on. I mean, like I said, I already covered Trump's announcement speech that he's running for president. Oh, I love it. He's going to tear the party apart. That's neither here nor there. We already covered his announcement speech, but I was really hoping they were going to cover it. I guess by the time I stream again, they probably will have already covered it on Flashpoint, and we'll probably take a look at that one. That'll be interesting. Televangelist bad-mouthing fraudulent money laundering people's most tone-deaf, pot-calling the kettle black rhetoric I've ever heard. Absolutely, 100%, dude. Absolutely nuts. It just blows me away that they lack self-awareness so thoroughly. It's crazy. Anyway, let me know what you think about this. Let me know if you want to see more stuff like this in the comments or on Twitter at Telltale Atheist.